So welcome everybody. So happy to be here again. My name is innate and I'm here with Libby. And Libby was already on the podcast like a while ago, I think it was. So I'm so happy to have you back here, sister. And today we're gonna talk about what happens after the ayahuasca afterglow and a little bit of timelines in terms of integration and things like that. And I'm super excited, to have Libby here because she went through, the whole 1 year integration program and everything. And I'm excited to hear her perspective. And it was a while ago, so there is even more, retrospect that you can look back onto, which is like so exciting. And yeah, we thought that this would be like a useful conversation for most of you who listen to the podcast. Because we were talking about this in Clubhouse and it was, a lot of people had something to say. And yeah, anyways, if you want to talk to us or be part of the conversation, we are on Clubhouse every second Tuesday. And yeah, you can just, find the link in the description how you can join us and just, that's an interactive room that we have every second Tuesday when we talk about, everything about ayahuasca preparation and integration, basically. So welcome, Libby. So good to have you back. How are you?
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's been about a year since I was last on your podcast, and I love listening to them. So thank you so much for having me back on. It's such a pleasure. And yeah, as you said, I co-moderate the room with Nina for Clubhouse. So I also highly recommend checking out that room if you ever have the chance. It's a really great 90-minute conversation every other Tuesday. And just being a part of it has really helped me in my healing process even more. I finished my year-long integration about a year ago to date, actually. So I really believe that being a part of that Clubhouse room has, being a part of a community has also helped me expand that healing even further, and being part of a group. So it's wonderful. So yeah, check it out if you would like. We'd love to have you.
Yeah, that's a perfect timing. Actually, we didn't plan it, to have this like year apart, and
we did not plan it.
I think it's just really, perfect once you kind of relax a little bit into the flow. It just all aligns, and I love that. And this is a good example for that. Okay, I think I want to start with just, what we always talk about in terms of integration. That integration is basically the embodiment of those lessons and teachings and newly acquired awareness that you receive, through the medicine and with the help of the medicine. And that's what the emphasis is on, that what you're going to do with that knowing, that wisdom, that insight, that awareness that you now have, and how you're going to translate that into your everyday life, how that is going to change your life, on the long run, and so on and so forth. So I know that you went through so much, like since these last 2 years. So whatever comes to you that you want to share on this subjects, that how did it look like for you to translate those insights into your everyday life, and what were those habits and behaviors that you changed, and how did that work out for you? So I'm just giving you the mic to share with us. Thank you, sister.
All right. Yeah, so for me, I've been thinking a lot recently. The two of us and our friends in Clubhouse have been talking a lot about the ayahuasca afterglow and what happens after the afterglow wears off. And, it's a different amount of time for everyone. For me, the afterglow, I would say, didn't last very long. And now that I have enough space to reflect and look back on it, I really think that it's because with my intention when I went into ceremony, I asked the mother ayahuasca to show me how to live life without pain. And ultimately that pain was stemming from anxiety, fear, lack of trust, things like that. So what really started happening very quickly when I returned to, at the time, my home was in Chicago, was that I entered this pretty much this state of like almost total darkness. And that was very scary for me. And the way I describe darkness is that I had this like just total acute awareness of all of my triggers, and all of my shadows were just thrown at me so hard. And because I was battling, I don't want to call it a battle, but at the time it felt like a battle. So sometimes I'll talk about how I was feeling in the time, but I'll look back at it and be like, that really wasn't a battle, but it felt like a battle, which I also think is really cool. So anyway, these triggers and shadows were just in front of me, and just like I was facing them straight on. And because I was in this sense of total bliss from coming out of ceremony and then being faced with what I had asked for, I asked the Mother Ayahuasca to show me. I asked her to show me how to heal this, how to heal this trauma, how to heal this pain. And so she showed me, and she showed me really fast. And it was in those moments of darkness where, you know, luckily I knew that I had Nina to help me get through it. And now that I'm looking back, this is how I was very present moment in the time, just really trusting the process. But I was very, very dependent during my healing process on that help. And that was something that I committed to, and that she had committed to me. And that's what I knew I was going to have. So I didn't know that I was going to be faced with all these triggers so soon, but luckily the consistency and what I knew was going to be there was my therapeutic sessions with Nina, my talk therapy. So, I kept moving forward with this. And the first few months after the ceremony were pretty dark. And then the more I became aware of these triggers and aware of these shadows, and then the choices, because my awareness was increased so much, and then I was aware of these choices that I had and how those triggers made me feel, or how those behaviors made me feel, I was able to decide what made me feel good, what didn't make me feel good. I became aware of my habits of, self-sabotage, self-destruction, things like that. So I was able to recognize them a lot quicker than just as before I started out on this journey, just living and surviving with these constant feelings. Now I was able to recognize them a lot quicker, and then stop and have a conversation with myself, and and then make those choices. How am I going to move forward with this? So that was a huge gift that I had with this integration, was knowing that I had assistance in this process. I've never done it without this type of program, but I really believe that if you are called to the medicine, called to the Mother Ayahuasca for the purpose of healing and awakening, that this would be a really great choice for you to really achieve that for yourself. And yeah, so if you could remind me just a little bit more about the question, or we can.
Yeah. So Can you say some practical examples so people can understand, like, you know, how does that look like on an everyday basis when you say that you become aware you're, you know, self-destructing kind of behaviors and habits and triggers and all that? And what did you do about it, and how is it now? So for example, I remember, you know, that one of the big things that you were working on was physical pain and discomfort that you felt, and you know how you were relating to your body before, and then what happened, and how you started to listen and honor your body, and therefore, you know, feel better in your body. And another thing that I remember, like I think everybody can relate to, was with obviously family relationships and putting healthy boundaries, you know, to place
Yeah.
it. So yeah, if you want to tell a little bit more about those two, I think, you know, people would love that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as I said before, I was called to the medicine to help heal myself from chronic pain, anxiety, PTSD, and uh, I realized that a lot of the pain was actually just from not listening to my body. And what I was able to learn, for example, um, there's so many examples that I'm actually going to give right now because, um, you know, a lot of it does have to do with boundaries too. So your body is your temple, and your body has innate wisdom to tell you everything that you need to know. And I kind of feel like before I set out on this journey, I was just kind of like surviving, and I had certain things like I had a job, I had a husband, I still have a husband. I had you know, an apartment. I had these things that I felt like I felt like I should just be happy and, you know, just keep chugging along. And in reality, no one should be living like that. If you're in pain or you're anxious all the time or things like that. So what I started to do was I started to reflect a lot more, like, okay, so I have this job, but why am I in so much pain? Why can I um, not sleep at night? Why do I feel like I can't um, speak my truth? And it's because I was refusing to listen to my body. I was refusing to listen to my gut. So as a last resort, my body was giving me these signals in the form of pain. And for a very long time, I still wasn't even listening until the point where it got to um, that I couldn't even chew and swallow solid food. So that was kind of the final straw, which now as I look back, um, I call that, like, symbolically, like, the truth was hard to swallow. And I still think that that's a really good representation of the journey that I went through before, during, and after. So for example, I learned how to set healthy boundaries for myself, whether that be in a big situation, like a big case situation, or a small case situation. A small case situation, I would practice yoga asana every day, and I would push myself to the point where I would literally not ever go a day without practicing, because I thought that that was weak or bad if I didn't practice this pretty intense yoga asana every day. And it got to a point where I would push past this immense amount of pain, and I started to realize that was my body just asking me for rest, because I was so imbalanced in the way that I was living my life. I was so masculine or something, or just I pushed so hard, like no pain, no gain. Um, and that really just um, learning how to listen to my body in such a way has helped me on so many levels, even to a larger case scenario where I had this job and I never knew how to stand up for myself, and standing up for yourself I never really knew how to stand up for myself. And I always thought it meant like pushing your chest out and putting your foot down and, you know, yelling back at someone, but like, that's just not what it ended up meaning for me. What it ended standing up for myself really ultimately just meant leaving and not pushing so hard to try to be something that's not right for me. And there's really just no point of doing something that doesn't make you happy. And there's a difference between thinking that you're happy and really being happy. Just because you hold this title or because you have a certain reputation in a community, that can all just be so external and mean something that's really just not your truth at all. And I realized after a while that's after a while in this healing and integration process, that is how I was living my life before. So I stopped trying to push so hard against the universe into getting these jobs and into being in this asana community and things like that. And that has opened up so many more doors for me, where when your energy is flowing, it flows into places where you're more meant to be, instead of just muscling your way through life. And when I started, and that really all just flows, like comes back to me listening to my body and just stopping for a second, like even just a few seconds, to ask myself, why is my knee hurting so bad? Like, yeah, I did injure it. I injured my knee, but why did I injure my knee? Why, like, what was I doing? Why does it still hurt? What's going on with that? What do I need to do to feel better? So, making those choices also made me a lot more brave, and it made me like learning how to watching myself, trust myself, and seeing everything play out, or like fall into place, not play out, watching everything fall into place when I started to take these steps back and ask myself these questions and take those chances into trusting myself. Because back then, you have to realize, I never used to trust myself. I used to self-sabotage. I used to question myself. Like, even the simplest thing of like, what color am I going to wear today, was like, I would even second guess myself on what I would put on my body to wear. So if that sounds like that, you should imagine the bigger decisions that I had to make in my life. So,
and I remember there was once that, correct me, on this, because I can't remember the details, that you were signed up for some course or workshop, and you were in pain and you didn't really want to go, but you didn't want to lose the money, and you went, and there was like a car accident or something. The universe literally like you on the way, like
yeah, that was me. You got that. And
ignoring your body's signals.
and what's really quite cool about that whole situation is that I still use that to this day, of a learning experience, where when it happened, I was so just like mad at everyone, like not everyone, but I was including myself. Like, I was just like so mad at the world. And this was like one of the final straws that like took place. It was like the most absolute, like, it just completely embodied my all my situations, like my self-sabotage, my mistrust, my looking for external sources for validation, all of that in one. So yeah, this was in Chicago, and I was signed up for and involved in a yoga teacher training. And my body had just completely had it. And I tried so hard to listen to my body. And I even tried to drop out of this course, but then like the bad part, like the bad side of me, like after I had listened to my gut, was like, oh no, you're not going to get your money back, so you should go. And one thing led to another, and I ended up getting in the car late, starting driving to this teacher training, and I got T-boned. I didn't even make it a block, and I got T-boned by another driver and ended up like tearing a ligament in my shoulder. So then, one thing led to another. I couldn't practice. I was in like immense amount of pain all over again. And this was one of my blessings that like ended up, I think, like ultimately leading me back to Nina. I had already known her and stayed pretty close to her, but had never worked with her at this type of in this type of sense.
That's what we call a wake-up call from the universe.
It was such a wake-up call from the universe, and I still use this lesson almost on a daily basis because of all of the different things and all of the things that it embodies and it touches in my journey. And I think it applies to like many other people.
So what you are saying is that, what happened to you through your experience, that you went from this external guidance, which is, what other people say I should do, right? To internal guidance of honoring your own being and your own body, telling you, how much is enough and when to stop and when to pause and when to rest. And with such a small, it's a big journey and a big transformation, but the action that you started to take was just saying yes to that and doing small things like resting more, and taking a day off and just resting your body. And that did miracles, and
miracles. Yeah. And then just for me, taking the risk at the beginning of this to learn how to start trusting myself and trusting that when I trust myself, that everything will just fall into place.
Right.
That was also, really big. And I think that the medicine really helps us with that.
Right. So. And, another thing that I want to talk about, because I think we all, obviously live in relationships and or primary relationships, and family with family members and loved ones can be sometimes, the most challenging, of course, the most loving and intimate and connected as well, but definitely sometimes the most challenging. I think, I don't know which wise man said that if you think you are enlightened, just go home and visit your family. So I often observe that that's a vital part of the healing process, of the integration process, is to kind of face those issues and work on those issues and take action and shift the dynamics within the close relationships into a more balanced state, that is more beneficial for everybody. And this always comes up as a trigger, for everybody, even without working with the medicine, in any kind of therapy or self-development. So I think this is a good kind of point of measure, also how much you moved, how much you evolved, to look back, okay, how much your relationships changed, especially those relationships that were challenging for us. So for most of us, we have like a history, with one of the parents, and it's just some big family drama and war going on, and to find some way of peace and forgiveness and love and compassion in these situations sometimes can be very difficult and very challenging. And oftentimes, these relationships have elements of abuse or just straightforward abusive relationships or toxic relationships that we are in or we stayed in just because it's a family member and we somehow feel obligated to take that abuse. So how was your experience with that, and where are you now, looking back into that whole story and dynamic in your family?
Yeah, so I definitely agree with you, Nina, about how family is can be a very challenging and triggering. Now, I believe in a very healthy and productive way. And, going back to a lot of what I've been talking about today is, standing up for yourself and creating healthy boundaries and, balance for yourself. I was always kind of like, I always kind of just wanted to like leave the nest. I'm from Indiana. And so if you know how close Chicago is to Indiana, it's only just about a 3-hour drive. So I was still just at this arm's length distance to my mother. And I was finally brave enough to, well, one, I really needed to get more into nature. So my husband and I, actually during the pandemic, when we were locked in our tiny little studio apartment in a concrete jungle of Chicago, we started, writing down what we really, really wanted in our life and what that looked like. And that ended up ultimately looking like a desert with sun and mountains and nature. And the only place where we could find that was like 15 to 1800 miles away from Indianapolis. And, I've traveled far and wide, but none of that was ever permanent until we did finally make this decision that we didn't need to be so close. And that really did go, fall back into that trusting yourself and creating healthy boundaries for yourself. With that, I've also, I was always so triggered by my mother and I have a lot of differences in our communication styles and on our views in life, politics, whatever it may be. And I was always so triggered by these conversations that we would have that would barely ever be conversations. They would just kind of like always turn into pretty big arguments. And I always felt like I needed to prove my point by speaking or fighting back or yelling back. And that never seemed to get me anywhere. And I never quite realized that until once again, after I sat with the medicine and I started integrating and I started making these choices. So I'd be triggered by a comment by my family. I'd be like totally triggered by a comment. And, at first I'd notice this like urge to fight back. But because I had this awareness of how is this going to make you feel if you keep fighting back or if you join this vibration? Has it worked before? Like, has it worked before? And how far have you gotten? Or are you just going to try something different? Like maybe don't respond. And that's going to be your reaction, is to not respond and see where that takes you. So I started kind of like experimenting with this and changing my communication style with my family. And, I definitely do not speak to my family as often as I used to, but whenever I do now, it's a lot healthier. And it feels a lot better. And did I mention it's a lot healthier? So just learning how to stand up, like finding the strength within myself to stand up for myself that way, instead of, in being a lot more peaceful and speaking less and proving my point in such a way, I think that my relationship with my family has really, it's gotten a lot better because we're not fighting. And I think that by not engaging in those certain types of behaviors, it also shows that I'm not interested. I am not interested in this whatsoever. So because I'm not playing a part in that, then it's not even presented into me. I'm not in that vibration anymore. So yeah, the distance and changing my communication with my family has definitely helped everyone. Everyone to just be better and show up better.
That's so awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. And I just want to do a little summary here, because that's kind of like standard part of the integration process, what you just described, how, you know, the medicine helps us to expand our awareness, and that with that expanded awareness, we turn our attention inwards, that you mentioned several times, that instead of, you know, reacting to the external world, instead of trying to defend ourselves, instead of trying to, you know, bring our point across or convince somebody, you use your awareness to kind of reflect on yourself and what's going on in your internal reality, in your internal landscape, in terms of how am I feeling, what's going on in my body, you know, what am I thinking about this, so on and so forth. And starting to develop that intuitive guidance, you know, that comes from within, and turning our attention a little bit away from those external voices that are telling us constantly what to do, how to live, you know, how to behave, how to speak, so on and so forth. And once you start to bring your attention inwards, I think that one of the most important things that happens, which is the most challenging but most liberating as well, as you described, is that you become aware that we are our worst enemies. You know, that you are doing this to yourself. You know, as you said, you are participating in that game, in that conflict, in that, you know, fight, in that you are participating in it, and you are creating it, you know. And I think this is kind of like the what you said, you refer to as a truth hard to swallow, because a lot of people is much more comfortable, you know, to blame somebody else for what's happening, instead of acknowledging that I am part of that, you know, I'm co-creating this, I'm participating in this. But also one of the most liberating, as you mentioned, because now you have a choice, you know, the result, the gift here is the choice, because before you don't have a choice, you're just on automatic pilot, and you react to the triggers, and you recreate, you know, the same scenario. I'm sure everybody familiar with that, you know, how you keep circling in the same cycle. But now you have choice, and now you're like, okay, so if I'm doing this, if I'm creating it, if I'm playing this, I can just stop it. You know, I cannot do it, I cannot participate. I can go ciao bye and and choose peace, you know, and not participate in a fight. And that is, you know, that personal empowerment, I think, that we always talk about in the integration and in the healing process, to take back the power over your life from that zombie reactive, you know, state, when you just keep repeating, you know, the same patterns, the same mistakes, and blaming others for it. How did that work out for you, by the way, you know, versus trying something else that you are guided to do, and see, you know, what does that do. And as you said, you saying, oh, that's much better, I feel better, I'm more peaceful. Everybody is more peaceful, there is less conflict, there is less fighting, everybody benefits from this. And of course you have more inner peace, you know, that's above all, you know, that's why we are doing this. So that's amazing, the way you described it, you know, how this plays out. And certainly I think, especially with close relationships, we want to change the other person. We would, oh, if you would be just like this, then I would be happy, you know. It's like, and it's just such a futile like windmill fight. It's just like it's never happens, because you don't have power over other people. And as soon as we can shift that perspective and realize that I cannot change this person, that I can change myself and the way I look at things, the way I see things, and I can change my actions, I can change my behavior to in a way that serves me better, and ultimately everybody, as you described, everybody benefited from your action, not just you, but all the other family members who also have less conflict and more peace, in this situation.
Right. At least with me. No. Yeah, so that was actually, I'm really glad you brought that up, because that was one of the biggest teaching moments for me, was when I really, really was able to understand that I am really only responsible for myself. I am not responsible for anyone but myself. And, you kind of always know that, you're taught that, but like you said, you can't change anyone else but yourself. And when you are responsible for yourself and you do stand in your power, then only good things are going to follow that. So yeah, I'm really glad that you brought that up.
So we're gonna probably do a part one, because we just touched upon the first two questions that we wanted to talk about. So but just
Is it long?
yeah, and I think it was so rich, the conversation, but we did cover a lot of grounds. What, in retrospect, now you are at this like 2-year mark, right? If you're looking back, if you just want to share a couple of things that you really took away from the experience, or something that you would like to communicate to the people who maybe feel called, to participate in something similar, and feel ready to radically, shift their life. This is the moment, to go through your message, dear sister.
Oh my gosh. So
Hold on for 1 second, because
no worries. That was a big question. So I need to
okay,
someone's doing construction. I just heard like a nail or something.
yes, good to go.
Okay. So my message to anyone who is thinking about starting on a journey like this, who has experience with a journey like this, or feels like, lost, or you don't know what to do, but you're watching this, I feel like this is part of your calling. And I feel like you should definitely trust yourself and trust it, no matter how hard it feels, because everything in the end will be so worth it. I would be lying if I said I wasn't very afraid throughout a lot of this, but that's all part of the balance. I always, every single day, I thank Mother Ayahuasca for her infinite gifts. And yeah, because she and Nina have just made that much of an impact on my life. And I really, really, really do. Every single day, I know how much of a difference it's made in my life. I don't live in pain anymore. I don't struggle with anxiety anymore. There are so many things in my life that have been so enhanced because of the changes that I've made in my thought processes, in my daily habits. simply because of the awareness that I've gained from this. So yeah. I really, really would suggest, that you look into, just do a little bit of research on some guides such as Nina. I'm seriously not just saying this. There were many, many, many times throughout my integration where I would have just given up, or I thought this is too expensive, or things like that, or it was just like too dark to even handle. But having her expertise and her knowledge and just her support, it really got me to where I am today. So it was a team effort, and you don't have to do this alone. And that type of investment was and is so worth it. So if you ever want to talk to either one of us about that, I know that we're both here to do that. And we're more than happy to. We would love to talk about it. So yeah. Any questions, reach out to us. I know Nina will cover this as well. So yeah, so much for listening.
Thank you so much, sister. I'm so touched. And yeah, as we say here, always, you are the healer and love is the medicine. So the
Yes.
main gratitude goes to you, because you
This is true.
and we always say that the medicine and the guides and the therapists and the healers are guides and supports on the journey, but you are the protagonist and you are the most important part. And I think that the amazing positive changes that happened in your life was greatly because of that commitment, that 100% commitment, and that radical honesty with yourself, and that willingness and openness that you had and still have. So yeah, definitely team effort, but without you, nobody can do this for you. So, and that's part of that empowerment, that as we go through, these type of processes, we are like, wow, I am strong.
Yeah, you're so right. And that like also goes back into like the truth is hard to swallow. Like sometimes it really sucks to like put that hard work in and tell yourself you're not a victim anymore, but it only sucks for like a second, and then you have the whole rest of your life learning how to heal yourself over and over again. And that's another thing that I've learned. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and for all of you who are listening, I hope that you enjoyed this episode, and please help us to share this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel and all the other channels in social media, because we are relying on you to put this out there and to make it available for people who are considering, doing this type of journey with this beautiful plant medicine, the mother ayahuasca. And that's why we are doing this podcast and putting all this effort to help people to understand a little bit better what they are heading into, and to navigate this path with a little bit more ease and grace. So thank you for your contribution and your support. Thank you for listening, and see you soon, because we will be back very shortly with Libby. Lots of love.